All right, Prasad, you are arguably my favorite founder, or one of them. Don't tell the other founders I said that.
Thank you.
But what I love about you is you have been around this, you're an institution of sorts. You've been around this industry for so long. You know so many people. You did a cold startup, you sold it. Before you were in the load matching business. And now you've gone out and started another business. But you had a very successful exit when you guys sold Trucker Tools. So I have an enormous amount of respect for you and not just your knowledge of the industry, but also the journey of being a founder, which is not easy. It's a very lonely world as a founder, but you've seen all sides of it. And Trucker Tools was not an instant overnight success. You guys had a lot of struggles early on. What is the journey, sort of looking back on that? You've got a new startup we'll talk about in a second. But what was that journey like getting from bootstrap to near-death experience to exit?
I think you said it, near-death experience, right? It's one of the hardest things. When you're a founder, it's a lonely place. Oftentimes you'll be alone because nothing you try would work. If it works, then everybody would be founders, right? But it's having that grit. It's finding who you are. The way I can compare starting a business is to Lord of the Rings movie where Frodo has to carry the ring to the goal, not knowing which path he takes. Your journey is always like that. You don't know which way you go. Would you go this way? Would you go this way? Either way, you're going to find bumps in the road. It's creating a business, which is creating an opportunity for people to work, wealth creation, solving problems. It's not easy. Any way, like we slice it, it's very, we're fascinated with it because at the end of the day, it's, you've done something out of nothing, right? But the journey is never easy.
I remember back in, 2000, when did you guys sell? 2023?
2001,
2020?
21, yeah, 21,
21.
21, yeah,
Gosh, has it been that long?
4 years.
I remember, even more importantly, you timed the market right. And I remember it was 21.
Mhm.
And we had sort of, we were growing our business, you were growing your business, and we had, it was a brief moment where we sort of flirted with the idea of putting the business together. And I remember you telling me, as you were looking at an offer, and that you ran a process and you were ready to take the offer, and I remember trying to talk you out of it. And like, Prasad, but think of all, like, how great this would be if you double in size and how valuable it would be. But you took the money and you timed the market, I think, perfectly for a founder company. I think that took a lot of discipline to actually say, I think that my journey is done. I remember you telling me my family will be set for life. I will be able to ensure the financial security of my family. And I think that's actually a pretty unusual thing for a founder to do. I didn't have the same courage. We've had offers to sell the business that would have been life-changing money. And I, again, board dynamics are what they are. Had I gone to the board and advocated stronger, I could have certainly have sold that business. I didn't have the courage to do it. You did, and I think that is a remarkable thing. What was going through your head in those moments?
So as a founder, you can do things. Once the wheels start moving, now you go from being a difficult journey to I can do this. It's like anything. It's like riding a bull. I think that's the best way to say it, right? Now you feel like I can do this more, but you're a human. You have to understand the history of it is as difficult as it is to get on the bull. You can fall as in an instant, right? So that's the first part. The second part I'll say is the reason I mentioned about Lord of the Rings is every founder needs a good mentors group, a fellowship. I was very, very fortunate. Friends like you, but both of my board members are here, ex-board members now, very wise, and enormous amount, like number of people out there in our industry, really smart people. They're always telling you what they see. That gives you a complete picture. It's important to know that it's not one continuous journey. When you're building a company, kudos to Jeff Bezos for building Amazon, right? But a better journey is you're building steps. So one company, so Trucker Tools happened because of Get Loaded. And Get Loaded happened because I was in the shipping industry. And now because of Trucker Tools, it's cured. So these are all steps. At some point, there is a next chapter. And where you draw the line is up to you. And when you start a business, either you go public, and I don't think you can hand it off to your next generation folks in today's world. It's the life of companies going up and down is very fast. So we spoke about going public. I asked you the question, and I'm not I'm not the guy who wants to run a company publicly traded company.
I mean, it's interesting because like visions of grandeur happen early on, and like when business is good, and I actually think the right term is the being brave, be like having the courage to say I built something, even when things are going great. I think Jordan Graff, who's a friend of yours, a friend of mine. You were an investor. I was an advisor to Highway. I think made the same decision, right? Like he realized that. And look, he's still in it. I think the difference between your journey and his is that, he continues to build that business. But he also figured out, hey, things are great. Now is the time to take some chips off the table. I didn't have that courage to say, and even for my employees, did not have that courage to say, I think I should time the time. And I remember back in 21, and I don't know if I was judgmental or just disagreed with you, but we're friends and we can always disagree. It was interesting because I remember you were so confident that you were making the right decision for you. I remember thinking, man, but if you could just double this, it would be worth it. And I joined the math in my head, but that was when things were trading at 25, 30 times. So it's just such an interesting time because you had the courage to walk away when I think many founders left with the same set of circumstances probably would have said, I'm gonna double down and stay.
You're right. I mean, this never ending, right? I mean, we could have combined at that time our businesses. We could have taken on DAT, right? I mean, we would have had a good chance because Trucker Tools back in 2015 started digital freight matching. So we were very early in the game. We were very early in the app business too. So there's so much you could do. And when we sold Get Loaded to DAT, I've seen what you can do if you aggregate the long tail of carriers.
I remember my biggest fear, Prasad, back in 21 was you selling to Claude. It was not about DAT. It was Claude Pumilla, who I woke up every single morning to kick his ass because he had pissed me off so bad. And I wanted to take him down. And I thought, if we could do load matching, which is by the way, no founder should ever make a massive decision out of vindictiveness or anger or competitive, but that's actually how most businesses and founders think. Just listen to the Business Wars podcast to figure out what that is. And sometimes great innovations come out of it. But I remember thinking, shit, these businesses should be together and there's an interesting opportunity. You ended up selling to DAT eventually. Claude was out. I wasn't as pissed off when you did it. They have taken and ran with it. They've done a couple of acquisitions, but you've seen all stages of these load matching. Tomorrow we're gonna dive into the load matching wars. Like we met Scott, or the audience met Scott with Truck Stop. They're on founder mode back there. We have DAT and Trusted Freight, Highways TFX Exchange. And you and I had the chance to talk about this. I think this is the most interesting story currently in freight.
It is. This is the time I truly wish I have a horse in the race, right? Because I think DAT has done really good with acquiring Trucker Tools and Convoy.
They made the right decision, or they've integrated those well?
No, they have done a right decision of buying them, first of all, right? I think they're doing a
To be
good
clear,
job
they
of
didn't buy it from you. You had sold it to a private equity firm that then flipped it.
eventually, because Claude wanted to build, he thought he could build it in a year and a half and take over all Trucker Tools visibility. I said,
Yeah.
there is no way you can do that. So they built very well. The reason it's very interesting is Highway is coming from a very strong position. They're not weak. Highway is not weak to enter this competition, which makes the top of the mountain of a load matching has only space for two players.
In the history,
Traditionally, in the history,
it was DAT, which was
was-
really truck stops. I mean, not truckstop.com, but at truck stops.
actually,
Those that don't know the old school truckers don't know about the old truck stop screen. A load board used to be, in the old days, it was green screen S, but it was white screen. And you'd walk in, you'd see the loads listed. Gosh, I remember way back in the day. There'd be smoke in the room because it was always the driver lounge when you'd have them. And you would have the loads. And that was the way. And you had a number you could call. There was a phone. It's like a red phone or a black. I can't remember. It was red or black.
I don't remember, but
it
that's
was a
where the
phone.
name DAT came from, dial a truck.
Dial a truck. And
That's
you would
how-
literally type in the number you wanted and it would dial it out. And that was their shtick, as they got there as Jubit's truck stop, and then Get Loaded comes along, or Truck Stop comes along, internet truck stop comes along, and then Get Loaded comes along.
Yeah. Three.
We had three at some point.
Those three were the biggest, but then there's no room for three.
So what happened? Get Loaded.
So Get Loaded so we were eating into DAT's core business.
And they weren't even online at this point, were they?
They were live. They were online.
They were online?
They were online, but they couldn't. It was two. I mean, load matching is an interesting business. It's aggregating long tail of carriers
Yeah.
for the brokers. That is the main purpose of load matching. No, so whoever has the longest aggregation of long tail of carriers can run the table.
Wins.
So wins. And the only segregation you can get is van, reefer, flatbed. And then there are other things like heavyweight,
Yeah,
but they don't have enough strength to fight.
Jared bulk loads tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. But these three are the main. So we pretty much competed back then with van and reefer, DAT van and reefer head on with Get Loaded.
And truck stop was all flatbed.
A flatbed. So DAT had to purchase us or truck stop and hope that we would go away. Because you look at carriers, they typically pay 2 load boards. You look at brokers, most of the time they get it free, but they pay for 2 services. It's called insurance, right? So your main service and an insurance service.
I think
now isn't it perfect? Yeah.
I think that's true in rate data too. I mean, we see it all the time.
Yeah.
That it's very clear that the brokers are like, look, we have a load board. Most of the time, it's particularly in van, it's DAT today. Hopefully, truck stop will. I'm rooting for the red team, but hopefully they will take share. But right now, DAT is certainly the incumbent.
Yep.
So we know that going into it, that's going to be the rate provider. They have it. And we're okay because the providers want 2 providers. Nobody wants a single provider. And if anybody have scale, I mean, obviously you get smaller budgets become a problem. But your argument is there's no room for a third player.
There's no room for a third player. That's what makes this fight even more interesting. Because you look at anyone who's paying for the load matching service, they usually pay for 2 services.
Because they want to back up.
Exactly.
And they don't trust all their eggs in one basket. One of the things, though, I have to ask, you've seen, you sold Trucker Tools. They bought Convoy. I'm talking to the ASP. They bought Outgo, which is a factoring business. One of the things I get as I go into these meetings that I hear consistently is that, and I have this thought where I can't name a company that has actually built a successful number 1 position in one market that is not, now acquiring it is different, but has organically built something to win in a second market in logistics. That is not yet, to my knowledge, that is not where a company owns one market and then goes on and owns another one. Because the buyers of that technology typically profile, we're going to buy these services from that entity and not the other. And that's the reason I don't think DAT could have ever created a trucker tools product organically. I think they knew that.
No, they couldn't build that because you're absolutely right. It's going to be extremely difficult to build a product outside that and grow it. There are very few examples. I think the guys, your title sponsors, have done a good job of getting into the logistics side.
I mean, look,
They're logistics and retail, right? Because
Amazon plays by rules, but nobody else plays by. And I don't mean that in a nefarious way. I mean, they have unlimited capital. They own, we learned yesterday they're 25% of the internet, including the check-in badges that didn't work yesterday or 2 days ago. The reality is, like, companies like that are not even we're not even talking about, that's an entirely different sphere of reality because you just can't even talk about that. It's not, like, science, it doesn't exist for us. But when it comes down to, in freight tech, we have yet to see a company sort of emerge to bring something up that in the second space, at least as far as I know. So the question then becomes, can FTX, or TFX, sorry, I always get that backwards. FTX was the company that committed fraud, right?
Yes. We are not good.
It's ironic. One prevents fraud and one committed it. TFX. Can TFX get scale?
You and I, we spoke about this previously, and my stance is still the same. I think TFX has all the right ingredients to challenge DAT and Truckstop.
Why is
the reason is, first of all, I think Jordan has built a good brand for himself that he can execute a good product. Two, they're operating from a strength, right?
Fraud
prevention,
and arguably
because they're
but in fairness, Prasad, the competition in fraud was incredibly weak when Highway came out. Like
RMIS is not.
RMIS,
is not strong.
Truckstop buys RMIS. There's a lot of things happening at Truckstop. RMIS gets purchased. It wasn't integrated into the solution. Fraud explodes. It's an identity problem and the rules change really quickly. And this is a little bit about what Jack Kennedy talked about, is these inflection moments that create opportunities. It strikes me that the rules of going up against fraud, because your competition is so weak. Look, it's what made Sonar and FreightWaves very successful, because our competition in media, we still by far have won that market. But even in rate data, DAT ignored us for 5 years. They let us build traction. That is not the way DAT is looking at Truckstop. I mean, with the Highway. They are looking at Highway with, that is likely the catalyst for.
But they can't do anything. So this is the beauty of this story, right? Highway has something that's fraud prevention. DAT doesn't. Their product is not used in that.
For fraud.
For fraud.
No, it's where fraud takes place.
Yeah, that's where the fraud takes place. So most of the fraud comes from that.
By the way, a lot of fraud, before they come in, I get a letter from Roper's attorneys. Fraud takes place in other places.
Yes,
but let's be clear, they are a core part of where fraud is propagated. And for a while, they did not take the leadership position to do anything about it. I agree with it.
What they should, so this is, again, I have no affiliation to any company at this point, so I can speak my mind, right? If you draw the strategy for that, DAT has one piece of the puzzle, the load board carriers. Highway has, identifying which carriers are good. And of course, Truckstop has the same thing as DAT, except in flatbed, right? This fight's going to be interesting. It's not easy for DAT or Truckstop to just say Highway is going to be done. But they can only do it in deals.
But I think something is really interesting that has changed. And that is that Truckstop for a while was willing to sit the race out. They were willing, whether they wanted to consciously or not, sit on the sidelines. And I think what happened is their investors and Scott realized, hey, our business is at risk. We are okay being the number 2 player. But if we get squeezed, if we lose this battle to Highway, which is arguably clean their clock at RMIS, are we going to lose the ultimate battle, which is our place in this industry. And I think Scott realizes a sense of urgency. Truck stop realizes a sense of urgency, which I think makes the situation much more complicated.
It is. So when Jordan was running a process, they had, truck stop and DAT had a good opportunity to acquire him.
Of course they did.
They didn't do that. That was probably.
But in fairness, I mean, look, you could argue that Roper has unlimited money, but Roper's a very disciplined. The fact they paid $250 million is still beyond me for Convoy. But the reality is Roper's a very disciplined buyer. Truck stop had its own issues to address, and the RMIS acquisition had not gone as well as they hoped. I think a lot of this was their own challenges was the reason about it. And look, Jordan wanted as I would as a founder, wanted the highest possible valuation to get. I think a lot of it was the fact that they couldn't afford it. They couldn't justify the number that was being asked.
But this fight's going to be interesting.
I can't wait. We get to cover it tomorrow. We're
I know
we're out of time. But I do want to. 3 minutes on Q'd. I owe it this. But it's arguably the most boring startup here. By the way, I love you. I'm an investor.
I know.
But it's the most boring startup simply because you do scheduling.
Scheduling.
Which seems like such a boring concept. Tell me why it's exciting to you.
So in supply chain, you find problems. There are sexy problems. They're just, not so sexy problems. So we always get attracted to problem based on the merit of, how it sounds. Freight matching, digital freight matching, now it's AI. So all these things sound very good. So we get attracted to it. But nobody is asking, is this a real problem or not? So when I spoke to customers, there is one problem that has upstream, downstream implications like there is none. I mean, I've spent more than 2 decades, close to 3 decades in this space. You've spent all your life. There is no problem like scheduling. That has implications all the way up to shippers, OTIF penalties. More than 2/3 of OTIF penalties are connected to bad scheduling. So if you look at everybody's optimizing trucks, but nobody's optimizing appointments.
Yeah.
Because how can you optimize trucks without optimizing appointments? This is I'm going to say this now because we have, a significant chunk of customers now, so I can say this and not let my competition come in.
Big business out of scheduling.
Yes, absolutely. So this is by far the biggest gold mine.
Scheduling.
Scheduling.
If you had said that 5 years ago, people, and I remember you called me when you were starting this business, and I was like, I trust Prasad. I understand the problem. But the speed at which you've built your business, and it's actually one of the fastest growing startups in the entire industry, and even in the history of this industry, is one of the fastest growing. It's so remarkable, and I think it's a message to every founder in the room and founders that are around here, is that you have to solve one problem. And if you become the best at solving that one problem, because of the scale of this industry, you can build a big business by solving one problem. I think the problem is every founder, including myself, we have a tendency to want to solve a lot of problems. And I go back to what we were talking about earlier. Every founder at some point thinks about load matching, and they all throw money at it. But there's all these other problems to solve.
This is, you're right. I mean, one problem, right? Our team is so focused. Our meetings, our quarterly reviews, our yearly, planning, our weekly planning, everything is so very structured around focus. That's all it is. Focusing on one problem. And we get, like, a lot of our customers said, hey, you guys are doing this really good. Can you solve this problem? We're like, no, we're not going to do anything because there's so much to do here that, you're right, absolutely. We're keeping everything under the wraps, but we're by far the fastest.
Hey, by the way, Calendly, which is a scheduling app for calendars, I think is $1 billion unicorn, which is insane.
Yes.
But congratulations, Prasad. I cannot wait till we do this. Again, I love how we get to observe the industry because we don't actually have a dog in the hunt. And, we run 2 niche startups in this business. It's just such a fascinating story.
This is.
So, best of luck. Thank you.